Hello there and welcome to the second part of the present tense in French. In the first tutorial on the present tense, we focused on mainly regular verbs. This second part is going to focus on irregular verb structures, meaning that they don't quite follow the normal rule and they have their own set of endings. As you know, you will have the opportunity to do some exercises during the video. I'll be using my graphics tablet and pen. When you do have the chance to pause it, there will be a pause sign in the bottom left corner like that. And that tells you it's a good time to pause. You can do the activities and then unpause and resume, and I'll go through those activities for you. So, as I said, the main objective of this session is to look at irregular verbs. We will also be combining the idea of regular and irregular verbs together at the end with an exercise, but most of the explanation will be based around, not all, but just probably about 3 or 4 irregular verbs, because there's quite a few of them. I'm just going to focus today on 4 of the main verbs that are used that are irregular. So to begin, just a quick starter, you have A to J in front of you. They're infinitives. An infinitive, as I explained last session, is the verb, the purest form of the verb before it's been conjugated. So it should end with an ER, an IR, or an RE. Now there's 2 different parts to the task. Firstly, what do you think these verbs actually mean? If you need to use a dictionary or an online application to find that, that's fine. And the second part is to try and identify which ones you think are irregular and which ones are just regular verbs. So we did some of these regular verbs last in part 1. So have a go at just having a guess if you don't know which ones you think might not follow the rules. The extra task, if you want something else to do, you can choose one of those verbs, one that we've perhaps done before, and just write a sentence or conjugate it with a pronoun. And a more tricky off-topic question in yellow there is what is a reflexive verb? So it's a different type of verb structure that we haven't actually covered yet, but if you know that, have a go at that, and I'll briefly explain after the video, after the activity, sorry. So now is your chance to pause the video and I'll be back to correct this activity. Right, welcome back. So we're going to crack on with some of these. I'm just going to get my pen ready. So manger, there's 2 things here, what it actually means and also whether it's regular or irregular. Now manger means, remember in English we said it's always going to be to something for an infinitive. So it's actually to eat. And as we knew before in part 1, this one's actually regular. So I'll just write R for regular there. Jouer is to play. This verb is an ER verb and it also is regular. It's a normal verb. Aller is to go, a very common verb. And this one is our first irregular verb. So IRR, I'll write for that. Finir is to finish, and if you remember, we did in part 1 we used this verb, so this is a regular verb. Faire is to do, another very important verb, to do or to make, and this one is on the irregular verb list, so it doesn't follow the normal rules. Attendre is an RE verb. It means to wait, and it's actually regular, this structure. It's a regular RE verb. Parler is to speak or talk, and it's an ER verb, and this one's also regular. Être is one of the most common verbs in any language, which is to be. I am, you are, he is. And to be, unfortunately, is an irregular verb in French, so we have to learn it. It doesn't follow the normal rules. Avoir is also, with être, one of the most common and commonly used verbs in any language. It's to have, and to have, again, is an irregular verb in French. And the last one, J, choisir, which is to choose, and we did notice that one before. It's a regular verb. Okay, so we've got 4 irregular ones here. We've got aller, faire, être, and avoir. So they're the 4 verbs that we're going to be focusing on today and looking at their structure in the present tense. Just to go over some extra things here, we'll choose just to remind us of how we form the normal regular present tense. We take jouer. If we wanted to say we play, we put our pronoun nous. We take our ER off, we get our stem, and we add our endings there. Nous jouons like that. Very quickly, what is a reflexive verb? A reflexive verb is quite tricky to explain. It's generally verbs that we do to ourselves. An example of a reflexive verb would be se laver. Se laver is to wash, or to have, to shower, to have a wash. Se doucher is to have a shower. And when we see this se here, it means that it's a reflexive verb. So when we would conjugate that, this would change to a reflexive pronoun, so je me, and then we'd conjugate this part as we would a normal ER verb, je me lave, like that. What is going to change when we go to the second one is the reflexive pronoun and the ending of the verb. So I'm only just going to briefly touch on that because there probably will be another tutorial on reflexive verbs. This was just an extra task, but basically a reflexive verb is a verb that we do to ourselves instead of another subject. So instead of washing the car, to actually wash yourself or have a wash would be se laver. And we can notice it with the reflexive pronoun here. So just a very brief recap of the present tense. I'm not going to stay very long on this slide because you've got it in part 1. Remember, when we form the present tense, we have an infinitive like aimer, finir, ou vendre. We remove the ending, IRRE or ER, and we add these endings in red, depending on what type of verb it is. So I'm going to, if you need to refer back to that for any of these the following activities, you have that slide to come back to and pause on. So, irregular verbs. The 4 irregular verbs that we're going to be doing, I mentioned before, are avoir, être, aller, and faire. I'm just going to basically show you what these verbs are, the table of the conjugation first. There's not really any simple way to remember these. It's just a matter of going away and learning the verbs. What I will do is I will go through the pronunciation of the verbs, and also I have attached for you a song. Some people perhaps benefit from a song. There's lots of content on YouTube out there, so I've just picked one of the most popular songs for learning these 4 different verbs. So there's a different song for each verb. If you are interested in that, you can click on either the music notation here or the word song, and it will link you to that YouTube song. So être means to be, and I'll just very quickly go through it. Je suis means I am. Tu es means you are. Il est or elle est is he or she is. Nous sommes is we are. Vous êtes is you are plural. And ils ou elles sont is they are masculine or feminine. So it's je suis, tu es, il est, elle est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. The next verb that we're going to look at is avoir. Avoir is to have. There's a separate song here if you want to click the link. And here is the verb avoir. J'ai is I have. Tu as is you have. Il a is il or elle a is he or she has. Nous avons is we have. Vous avez is you plural have. Ils ou elles ont is they have masculine or feminine. So that's j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Third verb that we're looking at is aller. A very popular verb again is to go. The verb structure, you've got a separate song here if you want to listen to that and use that as an aid for learning the tense, the verb. We've got je vais, I go, tu vas, you go singular, il and elle va, he or she goes. Nous allons is we go, vous allez is you plural go, and ils or elles vont is they go masculine or feminine. So once again it's je vais, tu vas, il va, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont, elles vont. And the last verb that we're going to do today, because I didn't want to give you too many irregular verbs because there are quite a few and it would probably confuse you. And you know, it's good to focus on just the main 4 at the beginning and then perhaps go on to some other less common verbs. And the last one we're going to do is faire. Faire means to do, but also to make. There's another song if you're interested on this link here. And just going through it, je fais is I do, tu fais is you do singular, il, elle fait, he and she does, nous faisons is we do, vous faites is you plural do, this is a very strange one, and ils, elles font is they do, masculine or feminine. So just to go over that again, je fais, tu fais, il ou elle fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font, elles font. So there you have the 4 verbs next to each other, the 4 irregular verbs that we're focusing on today. Now just before I move on to the exercise, they are quite different to regular verbs, but they do still follow some sort of patterns. The pattern that I went through in part 1 was that tu often likes s's at the end. Okay, so that's how I remember that, you know, the endings generally of this pronoun. For example, if we look at these, they all still have an s at the end. Yeah, so that's a way of remembering the second pronoun, tu. Again, I said that this one here tends to not like s's, and it still sort of works. At the end, there is no s, so we're taking off the s, we're taking off the s. We're changing the s here to a t. So this one, tu likes s's, il and elle does not like s's. A little trick to try and help us remember. This one here tends to finish in ons. Now that doesn't apply for être, but it does for avoir, aller and faire. And again, this one does like ez, doesn't really apply for faire and être, but does help us with avoir and aller. And this one, this is really useful, ont for irregular verbs. They all have ont at the end. It's just a case of changing that letter to the first letter of the first one, yeah, and adding the ont. So v, this one doesn't have anything, and this one has an s on there. Okay, the little tricks to help us remember these 4 irregular verbs. Right, moving on to the last activity exercise of this tutorial. Now, this tutorial is actually going to really test your knowledge in terms of both the present tense regular verbs and irregular verbs. So what I'm going to have here is 8 different gap fills, and in each sentence we're using a different verb. Now that verb can either be one of the 4 irregular verbs that we've done today, or it can just be a normal regular verb that we discussed or talked about in part 1. So there's 2 things really to do. The first is to ask yourself, is this verb irregular or regular? And then the second part is to conjugate that correctly. So let's do this example together before I give you the chance to go away and try this exercise. So I go in brackets here is what we actually need to translate and put onto this line. Should be an accent there. À la maison l'après-midi. Now it does actually help you and tells you the verb to go in red here is aller. Okay, so this is your infinitive that needs to be conjugated, and this is your pronoun. The pronoun might change, and it also may be a subject instead of a pronoun. So the first thing is I'm going to write my pronoun, which is je. Then I'm going to ask myself, is this one of our irregular verbs? It is. We did study that today. So aller is an irregular verb. So it wouldn't be j'aille. It would be je vais. Je vais à la maison l'après-midi. So that's how the conjugation works. If you want to do something extra, you can translate those. This one would be I go, or I'm going to the house this afternoon or in the afternoon. So now is the chance for you to pause the video and have a go at these 8 questions. Okay, welcome back. We're going to go through the 1 to 8 questions, and I'll give you some feedback on anything that I think's important. So the first one is manger, and it's I, so it's I eat some cheese, so it's going to be je. Now, manger is a regular verb. It's not a funny one, so it just follows the normal structure. You take off the ER and you add just an E because it's an ER verb. Je mange. Numéro 2, I play. Jouer is the verb. Au foot avec mes amis. So again, it's going to be je. Jouer is another regular verb. It's er, so we take off our er and we just add e again. I play football with my friends. Numéro 3, we have une grande maison. This is the first one which is irregular. It doesn't follow the normal rules. We is nous. And for this one, if we check back on our notes, nous avons is the verb to have. So nous avons une grande maison. We have a big house. Numéro 4, they masculine. Finish le leçon d'histoire. Finir is the verb. It's an IR verb. They masculine is ILS, il. And we take off our IR and we add our IR endings. Remember, they're slightly different to ER or RE. It's ils finissent, ISSENT. Ils finissent le leçon d'histoire. They finish the history lesson. Next one, my mum sells sa chemise bleue à ton ami. Vendre. So vendre is of infinitive. My mum is ma mère. Ma mère. So we need to now think, who's that? That's going to be she. It's the equivalent of she. So this actually is a regular verb. It's not irregular. Take off the RE and add nothing, okay? Because if you go back to part 1, you'll see that RE verbs, we add nothing for the third person singular. Numéro 6, you go au cinéma avec ton frère. Now, aller is an irregular verb. It's on our 4 verbs list. You. Now, we don't really know whether it's you singular or plural. However, along the line here, it says your brother, so it's singular. So it's tu go. VAS, tu vas au cinéma avec ton frère. So it's you go to the cinema with your brother. Numéro 7, they feminine are très intelligent, mais aussi timide. Now there's actually, I've noticed a mistake in this one, so we will correct that as well. The verb is être. It's an irregular verb. We're going to have elles, pronounced elle. The verb être, if we go to our third person plural, it's sont, S-O-N-T. So, elles sont très intelligentes. Now, the mistakes are that these are both adjectives. And as you may have learnt, adjectives need to agree with what they're describing, and they're describing a group of girls. To agree this one, we would need to add an E on that, intelligent, and an S as well, because they are plural. This one already has an E, so we don't need to add an E, but we do need to add an S. Numéro 8, you, plural, do not do du vélo pendant le week-end. Verb is faire, it's an irregular verb. You, plural, is vous. The irregular conjugation of that is vous faites, but it's do not. So it's quite a tricky one. We need to make this negative. So we're going to put our negation there, and it would sound like vous ne faites pas. Vous ne faites pas du vélo pendant le week-end. You all don't go cycling or biking on the weekend. And there you have it. There is 1 to 8. All of those corrections for you. I hope this video has really helped you to understand the differences between regular and irregular verbs, and when to use them, and also how to form them. That is the end of this video, and I will see you next time.